Okay, so those are the cases that I discussed in my paper. And I want to talk about my literature reviews or summarize them at least. I won't go through the details as far as the research methods and all that. I just want to briefly summarize this, the results of the study and how it relates to or how it supports my hypothesis. My first literature review is by Anthony Dogelli, Hirschberger, and Pilkington. It's suicidality patterns and sexual orientation related factors among lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth. The study results showed an association between sexual orientation and suicidality. 42% had often or sometimes thought of suicide. 33% reported at least one suicide attempt. The study supported the hypothesis that relative percentages of suicidal ideation and attempts were related to environmental factors. In this case, there is evidence that parental responses to youth's sexual orientation and suicidal attempts are linked. 48% of those who attempted suicide reported that their fathers were intolerant or rejecting of their sexual orientation. Of non-attempters, 28% of fathers were intolerant of rejecting, while 28% of those suicide attempters had mothers who were intolerant of rejecting. Of non-attempters, only 19% had mothers who were intolerant or rejecting. So in essence, parental rejection appears to be related to youths attempting to commit suicide. It could be argued that parents' rejection or discomfort with their adolescent sexual orientation conveys the message that there is something wrong with the adolescent, thereby can exacerbate depression, self-loathing, and hopelessness, all correlates of suicide. The second literature review is by Gary Diamond and his research team. It's titled How Depressed and Suicidal Sexual Minority Adolescents Understand the Causes of Their Distress. So for this study, the researchers investigated the perspectives of sexual minority adolescents with regards to the causes of their depression or suicidality. More than half of the adolescents reported from non-disclosure related stress, a fear of being discovered by those who did not yet know about their sexual orientation. The reported contributing factors to this are religious beliefs or cultural backgrounds, societal homophobia, discrimination, and victimization. When the researchers asked specifically what the adolescents thought was causing their depression or suicidal symptoms, the majority of the participants said that lack of family acceptance and or family conflict regarding their sexual orientation were the cause. I want to read a personal statement from one of the participants, and it reads, my mother is not even willing to talk to me about it openly or go to a PFLAG, which stands for Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. Where am I? Okay, my mother is not even willing to talk to me about it openly or go to a PFLAG meeting with me. She's like that. She's like, that's disgusting, nasty. If you were a boy, I would have killed you by now. The third literature review is again by Anthony Dogelli and his research team. It's a different research team compared to the first one. and it's titled Predicting the Suicide Attempts of Lesbian, Gay, and Bisexual Youth. The researchers examined factors that chronologically preceded youth's reported suicide attempts in order to distinguish three groups of LGB youth. The first group is the youth who reported no suicide attempts. The second group are those who reported suicide attempts attributed to issues related to their sexual orientation. And the third and last group are those who reported suicide attempts not related to their sexual orientation. The results showed that 1/3 of respondents reported at least one suicide attempt. About half of all attempts were related to youth's sexual orientation. Gay-related suicide attempts were associated with identifying as LGB, especially by parents. Early openness about sexual orientation being considered gender atypical in childhood by parents and parental efforts to discourage gender atypical behavior were associated with gay-related suicide attempts, especially for males. Now, the fourth literature review, which is entitled Safe at School, Addressing the School Environment and LGBTQ Safety. Those the three literature reviews I discussed earlier are testaments to the severity of the issue, but this fourth and last article discussed what measures could be set place in schools to provide a safer school environment for LGBTQ youth and ultimately prevent the risk of LGBTQ teen suicide cases. In Bijou and Kuel's article, they suggested for federal and state legislative options and school districts to adopt concrete policies to create a safer school climate for LGBTQ and ultimately all students. These should be more proactive rather than reactive initiatives. Instead of waiting and figuring out what to do only after problems arise, school leaders should develop and implement proactive and preventive strategies for creating a healthy school climate. Another recommendation is to implement one or more LGBTQ programs or activities at individual school sites, such as safe zones, gay-straight alliances, suicide prevention programs, and wellness centers geared toward students of particular races or ethnicities. These initiatives focus on immediate issues of health and safety as well as on affecting longer-term changes in both school culture and societal norms. An important element to this is the active involvement of faculty liaisons who agree to play prominent roles. Lastly, Bijou and Kuel suggested for schools to create and implement professional development for all school personnel, focusing on the issues and challenge that LGBTQ youth face in their lives. Thereupon, generating collaborative problem-solving approaches to address those challenges. These collaborative efforts can start from simply coming up with information sheet or email about LGBTQ issues, then expand upon it by including guest speakers, film clips, and continue a dialogue regarding changes in classroom pedagogy and curricular content.